the all-new BMW 3 Series. Join us for a full tour on exterior, interior, exterior and interior at night, and a driving impression from the 330i on the road and the 340i on the racetrack. The new front is wider, you can see it at the double kidney, just visual, but it's indeed 4 centimeters wider in the track in the front, 2 centimeters more track in the rear, so that also gives a bigger stance on the road. This one here is Portimao blue, to my pleasure, and we're also here in Portimao today, so very fitting combination. Those headlamps have a small kink in here, and they come standard with LED, optional adaptive LED. And the third step is then this one here, the LED laser light, 600 meters of high beam range on markets where it's allowed with this maximum high beam range. Then you can see there are some blue accentuations there. $4.70 m, 15'4" or 185 inches is the length of this new generation. It's about 8.5 centimeters longer than the predecessor. This one here is the M Sport one with the M badge. You can see it right there. Rims 16, 17, 18, 19. The optional one here with the M design, 2-color scheme. Pretty sporty for sure. Of course, if you want more riding comfort, then you would rather pick a smaller rim size to have more tire for dampening left. Suspension wise, you get either a base suspension with new hydraulic cushions. So there's basically a progressive damping rate then. You cannot change it, it's a fixed one, but the more it goes in, the harder it gets. And so it shall offer more comfort and sportiness at the same time. This one here today is basically this fixed suspension, but with a lower M setup, 10 millimeters lower. That's the second choice you can go to. And an adaptive suspension we will test later on the racetrack with the M340i. In the rear you have those new tail lamps, which are really three-dimensional. You can see it here, I can really grab them, and they are horizontally drawn. And they look really great in this L form, especially at night. Other than that, the rear looks pretty clean. It's a classic BMW rear for sure. There's a rear view camera right there if you want one. And this lower bumper is in a black style. If you go for the M Sport, there are also different styling variants then. And this is here a real exhaust. So that's still the real deal. And considering this one here is the 4-cylinder, you already heard initially some sound bites. I think it also has a pretty decent exhaust sound. Or what do you think? So what's under the hood? Today for our main test vehicle, the 330i. This is a 2-liter 4-cylinder with 258 horsepower, 5.8 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour acceleration. There's the 320i available with 184 horsepower, but same base engine. Then there will be the 330e plug-in hybrid with a 60 kilometers electric range. And then later on there's the M340i. We've seen it at the motor show and we can already drive one of those today, a 3-liter 6-cylinder with 374 horsepower and 4.4 seconds acceleration figure. And then of course there are still the diesels, either 2-liter 4-cylinder diesel 150 or 190 horsepower, or the 3-liter 6-cylinder diesel with 265 horsepower. And what else is interesting? Well, this one here comes with rear-wheel drive. You can also get an all-wheel drive for a diesel. And important information now, especially for our friends in the US, the M340i will be always all-wheel drive in Europe, but in the US, you can also get it as a standard rear-wheel drive, but also as an all-wheel drive. This is the car key, slim. The M Sport and M Performance models get also the M colors here at the side. The top part is a little bit soft, not entirely hard. Then there's leatherette cover with blue contour stitches, very nice on the inside. Then the Hofmeister Kink, or Knick in German, then is also here at the inside of the doors. Very interesting design detail. Ambient light is right there, and it's also flashing red when the door is open. We have some night shots there where we can show you how it's red flashing when the door is open as warning signal for yourself and for others behind you, and some ambient light shots also. Those seats here are the optional sports seats. They have more support at the side and at the shoulders especially. The base seats are also available and offer probably more comfort. We will soon test them hopefully. And the base starts, at least in Europe, also with fabric. And in the US you probably will get also SensorTech. And those sports seats here, they also come standard in the M340i, and then with the Alcantara fabric mix, I would recommend you those to go. Still have a lot of headroom left, 1.86 m or 6'1", so for tall people no problem. There's also optional a panoramic roof. This is the interior overview. It definitely looks more modern and cleaner than the previous generation. Top part of the dashboard is also from soft touch. So one of your questions was the build quality. Yes, it has been improved massively. So far in the previous generations they were behind the competition as for build quality in the interior. Now they stepped up the game. Also very well integrated with that screen. It starts 8.8 inch. This one is the top one, 10.25 inch. You can connect your phone with Apple CarPlay wirelessly, exclusive. No Android Auto yet. Please drive me to Lisbon. You see, it takes a while here. Usually it goes a little bit.
Our next destination is Lisbon.
Yeah, there it goes. There's a digital speed here too. And if you have a route set like this, you also see the GPS information in the middle of your screen, and then on the right side, your favorite or unfavorite music choice. So look at the head-up display where the engine is running. You can see the speed, the allowed speed, and also some map information. For example, this arrow here so far when you're starting, and then also a little bit more. There is an increase in wheelbase for this new generation, and that's better. So you might remember the review of the previous generation. That didn't work out so well for the rear legroom. Now it does. Well, classic sedan opening. 480 liters is a setup. They gained massively in the room. You can see that. That's a more square dimension. This is really a big improvement if you compare it to the predecessor. Welcome. Let's start with some acceleration. That was 100 kilometers an hour. I think. Pretty good. So the official figure is 5.8 seconds. I cannot check it at the moment, but maybe you guys check it down in the time code. Was it 5.8 seconds? It's easy to remember for this engine because it has 258 horsepower. 258, 5.8. It's really nice. This is the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine with the 330i here we are driving. And see that there was no special launch control function, but even just by hammering the brake pedal and then the exhaust one, you could rev it up, pre-rev it to 3000 RPM. You maybe heard that there was some wheel slip since it's rear-wheel driven only, but that's, that's what the 3 Series is. Why people also go for it. Different driving modes. At the moment we're in the Sport mode, or let's see, Sport Plus. Then the stability control is drawn back just a little bit. And we had about 90 kilometers an hour, so almost 60 miles an hour, and car is staying really silent. More to motorway silence a little bit later. And this one here, the minus 10 millimeter M Sport suspension. But this one here and also the base one has this new hydraulic damper, which adds some progression to the dampening rate. So that shall bring you dynamic and comfort at the same time. And as long as the roads are pretty even, it feels very well. But when you go into some bumps, then you definitely feel that this is rather a sporty setup here. Oh, white kitten. There's a kitty. So, go slowly here a little bit. Don't run over some kittens. And then we get out of this small village again and go a little bit faster again. Good that we also can test some speed bumps. That's always pretty helpful for the suspension. Since when we go into, oh, that's not speed bumps, just weird roads. But also good to test. So with this fixed suspension here, when we go through different driving modes, it's just changing how the automatic gearbox is changing. That when in sport mode, it turns up the RPMs, shifts up later and so on. But it does not change the suspension rate. That's different with the adaptive suspension we're going to test later on the racer with the 340i. So now we are heading out here to the 40-mile racetrack with the new inline 6-cylinder in the M340i. We're going to warm up a little bit and then we have some hot laps. Of course, you already heard the sound difference. So this 6-cylinder of course gives you way more sound than the 4-cylinder. This is one of the biggest differences. Let me first introduce you something about the technology. Well, this one here has the rear differential lock. So, oh, there's the first group coming. They're already on their hot lap, so we let them pass. So there's a rear sports differential that comes standard with the 340i. And what does it do? When I'm here now in the corner, it shifts torque from the curve inner wheel to the curve outer wheel. And that really puts the car into the corner and improves the handling. And also been talking here to the racing drivers, and they also say what I said in my driving part, that the car feels more balanced, more neutral, so to say, but neutral not in a bad, but in a very positive way, that it's actually better to control. Here the 340i, we're driving it in the version with the all-wheel drive, which will be standard for the European market. That of course helps us when accelerating out the corners, because we have just more traction then to bring the power to the ground. So the all-wheel drive will of course be faster. I'm in the Sport Plus mode that reduces the electronic stability control. That means I also still have a rear-wheel bias with the all-wheel drive, and reducing the stability control also gives me some play with the rear end. So it's not that the car gets out of control, it's dry and a good tarmac here anyway, but there's a little bit more play than with the rear end, so you feel that you still drive a primarily rear-wheel based car. 200 kilometers an hour now, or 125 miles an hour. It's not so loud in here for that, considering, right? So also proves the sound insulation, although those ones here are prototype vehicles still with the M340i. Therefore, those racetrack cars also still have the camo paint that we already showed you it on the motor show, how it looks like unveiled. Here a look at the steering, and here on the racetrack I'm a little more satisfied with the steering. It seems that the 340i has a different steering setup here, so it's not that loose. It seems to me that it's a little bit better to control to me. And now to some city driving and Autobahn driving. So, well, it's not Autobahn in Portugal, but it's motorway. So about this semi-autonomous ride, you should keep your hands at the steering wheel at all times. But when you have this highest build of this system here, it shows you a green steering wheel when the car is basically taking over a little bit on its own. So again, keep your hands at the steering wheel, but just to show you, here in this case, the car holds itself in the middle position of the lane. Also when we're going in the next corner, I can show you that again. And also when I, for example, here steer, you can see that? When I steer to the right myself, get blind spot monitor, hard to see now in the light. So Rio Arade here, close to Faro for our location mark. So here when I steer to the right, see here the car slightly corrected to the left. Also here as a final conclusion, with a different vehicle, just to show you another color, it really will rise from orange to red depending on the light situations. Very interesting. And also this is not the M Sport line, so if you rather want this traditional luxury styling with a lot of chrome and not so fancy big bumpers and stuff, that would be also 19-inch rims here, by the way, you can see. Well, exterior-wise, it's surely rather an evolution, so they haven't changed that much. Just some little tweaks here and there. Interesting point for me is definitely that it's a little bit wider than before and a little bit longer. So we also have some more room on the interior, although it hasn't really changed the segment or something. But the legroom in the rear passenger side, that one is really important, so you can very well use that now also for tall adults in the rear. That would be one of the most important things for me then for the overall practicability use of that vehicle. Well, underneath they've changed a lot, and there was so many things I could tell you about this vehicle, and that really showed that they paid attention to this detail, this, and so changed also a lot of technology details you cannot see at first glance. That also contributes then later to the driving experience, but let me first finish the interior, because there the build quality has been increased. Some things that were missing in some of the predecessor generation. There was no rattling or anything we could possibly hear. Also the digitalization of the whole cockpit. One key finding for sure, that the voice assistant, it really depends on your internet connection. It works super well when you have a good connection. When you have some less connection, then that doesn't work so fast, and so you have to pay attention to that. But it's the same also with the new assistants, for example, with the Mercedes MBUX. As long as you have good signal, it's great. Less signal, it only has the basic functions. But I think everything is rather very well oriented, so sorted out in the interior. So it's rather a conservative approach. The whole car is rather a conservative approach, making the existing things all a little bit better. And the same also counts for the driving experience, because so far it was already a sporty car and fun to drive. Now it's even more balanced out. It has a more neutral feeling, but in a positive way, because you feel very safe, you feel very much at home. It's a little bit more agile. The new suspension, I was really looking forward to just test the base suspension at some point. The adaptive suspension was really performing very well on the racetrack. The normal suspension with the M setup with the lower one, I found that too stiff on driving situations just on a normal street. If you really appreciate it, you can go for it. Otherwise, I would rather tend to say go for the base suspension, or then again full spec for the adaptive suspension. Same goes for the seats. I would either go with the base seats. They will offer you a little bit more room. Overall with the day, those sport seats, also after some racetrack driving, I found them a little bit too stiff and they caused me a little bit lower back pain, so I'd also go with the base seats there. It's also a trick, when ordering this car, it can get so expensive when you get a lot of options for that. So I would rather really pay attention which options do you really need, because also the base car will be absolutely fine to drive. The steering feel is something I'm least satisfied with, because especially the play in the lower angle areas, and it's just an artificial feel. You have good control and yes, you have precise steering, but it doesn't give you a very natural driving experience as for the steering. Still, overall, it's a lot of fun to drive, and it was really impressive both on-road and on the racetrack how fast you can actually go with a normal mid-size sedan. You can go as fast as a true sports car. Also looking then here to the M340i, which was a very impressive experience. The all-wheel drive gave you a lot of control and traction on the ground then. The engine, of course, also with a flawless performance. And speaking about the 4-cylinder engine, even if you want, with a quite decent consumption here for the petrol engine.